Good morning. I hope that you are as excited as I am to talk about something that we all do and maybe we don't mean to. So, I am going to talk today about assumptions. And actually, there's 4 in your business that if you stop doing them, you will skyrocket productivity on your team and you will have the ability to create epic work, which is amazing. And also stop micromanaging because that's no fun. My name is Emily Hawkins. I spent 15 years in the corporate world. I have an MBA in global business. And what I learned in all that time was so much about creating productive teams and moving the needle in businesses. Well, 6 years ago, I opened my own business, and after creating a $1 million business, I decided to share with the world exactly what I do to move the needle, to leverage my time and my team to work less while making more and making a bigger impact. And I am the founder and creator of the Leadership Operating System, teaching you how to leverage your time and team without working 14-hour days. I want you to scale your businesses like I have done multiple times. I've actually become the fractional COO for several organizations as well. Behind the scenes, I'm the secret weapon for a lot of organizations in streamlining their time and team. But not anymore. Let's not do secret things, right? Let's do fun things together. So let's get into it. Today, I want to talk about the 4 assumptions that you're making that once you stop making them and actually integrate some new rules into your business, it will change the game in what you're doing. Now, I don't like to preach. I'm not a preacher by any stretch of the imagination. What I like to do is storytell. I love a story myself, and I am not telling you these things out of theory or something that I read. Unfortunately, and maybe fortunate for you, unfortunate for me, I have lived all these mistakes. So when I was in the corporate world, when I got the opportunity to manage people, I sucked at it. Like hardcore sucked. That is a business term, sucked. And it was because I did so much assuming. And that is exactly what we're going to get into. So I want to talk about what assumption is, because I think a lot of us have this definition in their minds that we don't really know what it is. And it's actually, I looked it up, I wrote it down, I want to read it to you. It is a thing that is accepted as true without proof. So think of all the things in your life that you assume to be true, but in all actuality, you do not have proof that those things are true. Now, in certain instances, it's a beautiful thing, right? In others, it's not. So if you need to make decisions quickly, there needs to be a level of assumption in there. Otherwise, you go into analysis paralysis. Assumptions can serve you as long as you understand that that is exactly what they are. I know after working in data analytics for a period of time in my life that assumptions serve you as long as you actually write down what those are when you are making blanket statements and you are analyzing data. Key, right? So assumptions can help you make information, gather information faster, make decisions faster. But assumptions can also get you in trouble. And here are 3 reasons why. Well, they actually contribute to the majority of miscommunication within organizations. So if for some reason you feel a huge gap in your organization between you and your team, for whatever reason, assumption is the gap, right? There's a root of assumption that you are thinking one thing and they are thinking something else, and you have a giant gap. Now, the other thing is that we usually assume the worst. Our brains are designed to keep us alive, and we usually go down the bad path. So let's think for a minute about maybe a time that you were not invited to something. This actually happened to my daughter recently. She was not invited to a birthday party, and all of her other friends were, and she was devastated, very upset. How could they leave me out? All of this and that. Well, guess what? A few days ago, that mother reached out to me and said, hey, I never heard back from you guys on the Evite. She didn't realize that she'd accidentally left my daughter off. So rather than going down the bad path, which we typically do, right? Let's think positively. And the best way to do that is actually to understand the truth, because our brains, like I said, are designed to keep us alive. And it's great to think that a bear might eat us, so we're going to stay hyper vigilant while picking berries or something like that. But in the real world, I want all of us to assume the good in others. And I think we've missed a lot of that. So that can get us into trouble. So let's review. It contributes to a majority of the miscommunications on your team, and which leads to, lots of resentment and misunderstanding. And we usually assume the worst, and we don't always see it as assuming. So we usually see it as fact. And if you looked at the definition that we were just talking through, it's seeing something as a truth with no proof, right? So a good example is everyone on my team is lazy. That is actually an assumption. Unless you have proof, that is an assumption. And I want to walk through the 4 assumptions that got me in trouble. And you may be doing them too. And I'm going to do it from a different angle. So I am going to put on here what you are assuming as the business owner and what I assumed when I was leading various teams. I am leading teams, but I don't assume these things anymore. And what your employees are thinking, what they're actually thinking. Now, how do I know this? Well, I have managed several different organizations. I have managed several different teams, and I'm the fractional COO currently of 3 different businesses. So I've worked with the actual employees within those organizations, and this is what they constantly tell me. So I am not making assumptions here. I am giving you data from my own business that you can go and implement into yours. So let's talk number 1. You are assuming that my team knows what success looks like. I'm going to give you an example of this. When I was a kid, I was 16, my first job, I remember I worked at a toy store, and one of my jobs was to mop the floor. I know, it's very glamorous, the first jobs we had. Also cleaning public bathrooms. Super fun, very humbling. But the manager asked me if I knew how to mop a floor. Now, I had foresight, and I knew that I knew how to mop a floor. But guess what I didn't know? I didn't know how she liked the floor mopped. And so I said no. Now, for 2 weeks, people that I worked with talked about me, and I found this out later, the girl who didn't know how to mop the floor. And only when I befriended them and explained why I said that were they like, oh my God, you're brilliant. I did that because the majority of your employees are saying, I wish I understood what exactly was needed, exactly what success looks like in the business. What does this look like? Is this what a metric is, right? So what am I doing that's moving the needle for the business? What is that? It's amazing how much we assume, especially when you look at a resume, right? And somebody's a project manager. I'm just going to use this as an example because 2 of the companies that I'm working with are in the process of hiring project managers. And one of them in particular was making a lot of assumptions that somebody that would apply for these roles would be incredibly technical. You don't know that unless you put it in the job description and tell them that they must be technically savvy. There are project managers that aren't technically savvy. And so it's important to weed those out by putting up front exactly what success looks like. In fact, I took the job descriptions that I have inside my leadership operating system, and I actually gave those to these teams so that they knew what success would look like. And so they're actually attracting the right people. But it's not just that, right? On a daily basis, how are you explaining what exactly is needed in the business? What exactly is needed from this person? When someone talks to you, I want you to think of them asking this question in their head. What exactly is needed of me for this specific goal, task, project? Now, the next one was, I know what motivates my team. It is money, y'all. Everyone is motivated by money. And I know that. I know that my team is money motivated. And I know that, oh my gosh, they love notes from me. They love little notes from me. Yeah, that's probably not the case. Now, okay, I will tell you that if you ask someone, are you motivated by money? They will say yes. Because if you think about it, that person realizes if they say no, then they are shooting themselves in the foot for ever making more money. So they're not going to say no. I am motivated by money too. You know why? Because I love electricity. I love heat in the wintertime. I love groceries. I am motivated by money because it keeps me alive and clothes on my back and basic human needs, right? So, of course, people are motivated by money, but on a daily basis, when you cannot give somebody extra money every single day, what else motivates them? I got this completely wrong for so long. And you know why? It was because I never asked. So what your employees are thinking is, I'm dying for time with you, the owner, to ask me anything, and I'll tell you. And you can say, instead of what drives you, you can actually give surveys. Now, inside Leadership Operating System, I give you those to actually know how your team is motivated and actually give them that motivation in the language that makes the most sense. Maybe they do love those notes from you. Maybe they also like team outings. Maybe they like spending time one-on-one with you. Maybe they like being pulled into different meetings to get their opinion. But maybe they don't. Maybe they want to be left alone and they want a kudos email that goes out once a week. You don't know unless you ask. Assumption is bad. Now, I am a words of affirmation person, and I am also somebody who is driven by success, right? So I always want to make sure I'm exceeding expectations. I want the next level. This is when didn't own my own business. I am the level, right? But when I was an employee, I was always looking for ways to move up the chain, get more responsibility, and relieve the burden of my boss. And I assumed, inaccurately, that everyone on earth was motivated like I was. So much so that I had a rock star on my team. This was back in 2015. Oh, she was so great. And I saw myself in her. So much of who she was, how she worked, how she operated, how strategically she worked, and how she could cut a task that took a lot of people 3 hours. She could do it in 30 minutes. I am not kidding you. Amazing. So what did I do? I gave her more work. Because when I was in that role, that's exactly what I wanted. I invited her to more meetings. I started asking her deeper questions. And guess what she did? She quit. What? Right? That is not what she wanted. She actually came to my office crying. You always push me too hard. You never, ever let me just be. I'm sick of this and I'm leaving. Oh my God, I misread the situation. I assumed that she was like me, and she wasn't. And I lost an amazing employee. She wanted to stay right where she was. Because what I didn't know, because I didn't have a conversation with her, is that she and her wife were about to start a family. And she wanted a steady Eddie job so that she could start a family and not worry about taking on new things. I never asked. I didn't know. And I lost one of the best employees on my team because of it. Do not assume. Spend some time with you people. The next one is my team loves my sarcasm. Okay, I am a person that just lives to be funny. It's like who I am. Now, my daughter, who is 10, says I'm cringe, apparently. And I guess at 10, your mom is cringe. I'm funny. I like to be funny. It's who I am. I feel like it lightens the mood. Funny and sarcasm, not always effective in the workplace. I do love sarcasm. I do. But with your employees and your children, if they're under the age of like 5, they don't get sarcasm. Sarcasm is one of the worst ways to communicate with people. In fact, Brené Brown says it sends the wrong messages to people. And sarcasm is something from an ethnic standpoint, from a socioeconomic standpoint, is different for everyone. So if you have people from different backgrounds on your team and you're using sarcasm, oh, that's so bad. They don't know. They don't know what you mean. So much so that I've heard this again, over and over and over again from employees that I've worked with. I never know what's a joke and what's real. And so it puts them in a space where they're like, is this real? Is this really what they want? Were they kidding? I don't know. And if for some reason I find myself shooting off at the mouth with some sort of sarcasm, I always say, I am kidding. Please do not do that. I always couch it in that. But sarcasm is a dangerous game. It puts people in a space where they don't feel safe. And when people don't feel safe, their brains, the logical parts of their brains, they shut down and they go into survival mode. It's what happens when stress goes in your body. So what sarcasm does is it enters the assumption that something is wrong. Remember when we talked about assumptions being, that? Well, this is what happens. And so it puts your team in I don't know if I'm safe. Are you going to fire me? When you were being sarcastic about that, was that related to me or was it related to somebody else on the team? And now those beautiful focus molecules that we have, and we have so few every day, are being spent on shit that's not real. And you're doing it. I know, because I did it. And it caused a lot of drama on my team. And I didn't mean for it to. So let's just stop using it. Let's stop using sarcasm and leave it to the stand-up comedians who are way better at executing it anyway. The next one is my team understands expectations. They know. Now, what are expectations? Let me define this a little bit. So I'm going to need you in a launch period to work 12-hour days. I'm making this up. I'm going to need you to work 12-hour days because we have to make sure everything is double, triple, quadruple checked, because this is our income for the next quarter or 6 months. So I'm going to need you to work more in this period so that this rest of the period, we can actually work less and be okay because we've actually made our financials, right? Now you get it, right? Now you understand expectations. Not, all right, this week and next week we're working 12-hour days. What? Why? I'm not working 12-hour days. I can't do that. I don't have time to do that. I'm not going to do that, blah, 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 right? Or what if you hire someone as your support person? Just throwing it out there. And you're like, oh, this will be the perfect person, right? They're a neighbor of mine and they're a stay-at-home mom and they're just looking for extra income. So I'm going to have them as my full-time support person. What does full-time mean? Is full-time 40 hours a week? Is full-time 50 hours a week? Is full-time 6 hours a week? What are the hours of operation? How long does it take for me to respond? What is an expectation of me responding? How often do I need to respond? What are some of the messages? What would that look like? You see how all of a sudden this role that you think is very simple, it can be. Without expectations, you can end up in this rabbit hole of assumptions, which is I'm always told when I'm doing wrong, right? So everything that I just labeled, when I bring anybody on board, I give them a plan of what success looks like. And again, in the leadership operating system, I provide you all this so that going forward, when you are hiring people, that you hire the right people, because we go through that. We have the right job description so that we're removing assumptions in that regard. But then when you onboard these people, they know what success looks like, whether you tell them or not. And visible feedback loops are beautiful. And they are the cornerstone for removing assumptions, right? And what happens in a business when we don't do these things is that we're just constantly correcting, right? We're constantly correcting. And some of us think that this might be the best way, like, oh, well, we'll just get started together and then I'll just tell you, right? But what happens is this is the message you are sending your employee. Because you're never like, oh man, that email you sent with the reset password, that was so great. You're never saying that, are you? You're saying you refunded the wrong person. You did the wrong thing. You did this wrong. You did that wrong. I need you actually to show up earlier. I need you on these days. I know we didn't talk about that, but that's actually what I need. Right? You are pissing people off. And it is because you are not telling them what they did well or level setting what the expectations are. So let's talk about the 4 rules that you will now live by. These 4 rules changed everything for me. The first one is we're going to remove some creative burden. What's creative burden? It's those expectations we're talking about, right? So let's not let our employees get creative about what success looks like. Let's not let our employees get creative about what expectations are in the business. These are things that we need to clearly state, share, communicate so that we are relieving the creative burden in that area so that they can be creative in other areas. I'll give you an example. Let's say that you hired a social media manager, right? I don't know about you, but I want my social media manager being creative on the strategies they are creating for us. But that only happens if they know what I deem success. In some organizations, people think followers are success. Last time I counted, when I get a new follower or a like or a comment on a post, that does not pay my bills. So that's not always success, right? Getting people on your email list sure is, because you can sell to those people, right? So it's different. So if you hired somebody and you did not explain this, you're gonna have that chasm that we talked about at the beginning, right? Where your employee thinks this and you think this, and there are no results in between. So you want to remove as much creative burden as possible. The easiest way to do this is with rule number 2. Start with why. So when you are doing any task on earth, I'm going to create a launch, right? I actually mentioned this before, right? We're going to launch. We're going to do a launch in March. I'm just making this up. We're going to do a launch in March. Why? We're going to do a launch in March because we have found that our target market is the most buyer friendly in the month of March. Also, we like to launch once a quarter so that it keeps revenue up, and we love paying our people. All of a sudden, you understand so much more about what's going on. We need a promotional calendar. Why? It might seem basic, but if you are not sharing these things, that's when assumptions come in, right? We need a calendar because every organization has a calendar. That is not a why. That does not drive your business. Doing things because you see other people doing them that is not a strategy, and that is not a why. In fact, if it is, we need to go back to the drawing board on the whys, which we actually do in Leadership Operating System. But I digress. This changes the game. In fact, when I was in the corporate world and everybody was coming into my office to ask me what time it was, not really, sarcasm, not working here, right? What they did was they would ask me everything. They were in and out of my office. I called them boomerangs. In and out of my office asking me all these questions all day long. And I realized very quickly it was because I didn't tell them why any of this mattered. And this right here changed the game for everything. Now, I want you to ask questions too, because as we talked about before, not asking questions, that's where assumption comes into play, right? You can even ask things like, could you repeat back to me what I said? Because I said a lot and now I've confused myself. And you can make a joke out of it. It's totally okay. That's when jokes are okay. Make the jokes about you. Jokes about you way funnier than anybody else. Ask questions. You will find that your employees care deeply for what you are doing. That your employees are human beings with lives outside of work that sometimes drag into the workplace. You will find that these wonderful souls are not only motivated by money, they're motivated by impact. But you have to ask the questions in order to find this out. And when you do, you will find out the most beautiful things about your employees. And finally, praise small wins. Did a website work properly with all the buttons? Hell yeah, it did. Let's praise some of that. That is a big deal. Was copy written beautifully by somebody? Awesome. Was your open rate a little bit higher than it was last week? We need to sing praises about that. Did somebody come to you and say, oh my gosh, your support person is amazing? Happens to me all the time. My support person, Nicole, shout out to Nicole. Awesome. So awesome. Did something go right? Do you have somebody that's looking at your data analytics, and because they're actually reporting it for you, a whole other topic that we actually cover in Leadership Operating System, that you uncovered that the thing that you thought was successful was not? You need to praise that data analytics person for actually capturing that data, because it could have saved you hundreds of thousands of dollars down the road by not repeating that. Praise is just huge, and I really, really hope that you use it. So I want to do a little commercial break. Inside the Leadership Operating System, we tackle all of this. In fact, I work with you one-on-one to do all of these things together. So we work one-on-one, we work in group sessions. It's an amazing opportunity to take your specific business to the next level, scaling your time and your team in a way that makes you productive and profitable and creating longevity in that message and impact that you want. It's not about different people. It's about using the people you have, maybe adding to that team, but adding to it strategically, so that you're spending less time in your business and more time on your impact. Now, if this is something that interests you, I would love for you to type the word shift in the comments. That's SHIFT. I will personally reach out to you in a message, and we will talk through if this is the right thing for you. We'll get you all set up. And it has been so wonderful talking with you today. If you have questions, by the way, I would love for you to throw them in the chat. I want to hang on for just another minute in case anyone has questions. So if you have questions about anything that we have talked about today, please put them in the chat, because I would love, love, love to see what your questions might be around assumptions, around why asking questions matters, around removing creative burden, around praise, any of those things. All right. Well, I hope that you have a wonderful day, and we will talk soon.